Today is May 12th, 2004. We're at the VFW branch of Westbury.
That's post 945.
Post 945.
Right.
And we're interviewing Rudolph Corte. The interviewers are Blaise Kumo and Michael Oka, and the cameraman is Daniel Macaron. Can you tell us your full name, sir?
Rudolph Corte.
Where and when were you born?
I have to think fast. 4/25/27.
Okay. Hometown or?
And I was going to the Bronx, New York.
Oh, all right.
Home of the Yankees.
Yes.
What was your pre-service occupation?
I'm sorry.
What occupation did you have?
I'm a little deaf on this side.
What occupation did you have before going into the service?
Well, when I got out of high school, as a matter of fact, I only served 3 years in high school. I couldn't finish the last year because what we're sitting here for right now.
Right.
So I finished the 3rd year and then went right into the service. So I had no previous, other than the education that I was given, let's put it that way. But I went into the Seabees, the 121st Naval Construction Battalion. And there, I learned what the good Lord gave me these things for. I don't know if you want to go into this section, but if you want me to elaborate,
Yeah.
I'll be glad to. In 1944, I would join the Navy. I was a little young. My dad had to sign for me because at 17 you are not allowed into any service unless you lied. I don't lie. He came down to Church Street, New York, signed us, a friend of mine and myself both. We went in. 2 months later, we were in the service. He branched off into regular Navy, I went into the Seabees. The difference was that we both served our boot camp time at Sampson, New York. He stayed there, I transferred to Davisville, Rhode Island, which was the Seabee training camp. And believe me, gentlemen, the Seabee training camp, we trained with the 4th Marine Division, and if there is any crackerjack outfit, the Marines are the crackerjack outfit. We learned the hard way. And sometimes you see pictures of this in the movies, some of that, believe it, it's true. When you think you're smart, that DI that's standing on the side is a lot smarter than you, that's what he's there for, to teach you to keep yourself alive. And if you want to be a fool, don't listen. But if you want to stay alive, listen. It's for your own benefit. From Rhode Island, we went aboard, there was 6,000 Seabees. We left at Davisville, Rhode Island, at Quonset Point, they're both the same. We went to San Francisco. On the way to San Francisco, we had 20 cars, we used to call cattle cars. I don't know if you gentlemen are familiar with it, but when you put all of us men in there, with equipment and everything else, we feel like we're cattle.
Right.
But it's a joke. All us guys, we're not just people that we met from one place to another. You have to remember one thing. When you're with, whether it's 50 airmen, Navy men, whatever it may be, you're no longer from anywhere. You're brothers. I protect you, you protect me. That's the name of the game. And that's the way it has to be until the day you leave each other. And that I mean, many guys say my hide and I say the fuel of my time. But that's the idea. You become brothers in more ways than you do with your own brother. Believe me when I say that. We were a day out of San Francisco and we hit 40 boxcars on the same track that we were on. Naturally, we had a few accidents there, you know, guys were hurt, but we managed to get there. That was strike one. We get into San Francisco, we get to Treasure Island, which was our departing point. We get aboard the Hornet. We get a few days out of Guam, and we were straight a few times. And believe me, you talk about sailors, there was 3,000 ships company. along with us, 6,000 Seabees. And you learn how to apply your abilities that you learn, you know, when you were at camp. We were welding bunks on the hangar decks so we could sleep, because you don't have 9,000 bunks on an aircraft carrier.
Right.
Any ship, let's put it that way. But fortunately, we managed. We went to Guam, we got off at Guam. We boarded other ships after 3 days, went to Saipan. And that's where the trouble started. We had quite a few Japanese on the island, and there were quite a few men that got there before us, along with the Marines and the 27th Army Division. Unfortunately, the 27th Army Division lost their colors. Not through their fault, but through the stupidity of someone that was higher. And I mean higher. The Marines were the men to be in the Pacific. They were to do the fighting in the Pacific, along with us fellas. The Army, God bless them all, they belonged to an ETO. That's the European Theater. They never fought in jungle fighting to that point. The Marines were used to it, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and so on, all of them. You could list them all day long. There's so many islands. But these gentlemen were equipped for that type of fighting. And when I say that, the Japanese were very good when it came to camouflage. The man could be standing right next to you, and unless you heard him breathing, you never saw him. And to just add a little cliche in here, you know, you get your moments when you can laugh after things happen. On Saipan, we were given a warning. We were on the lower part of the island, and we had the base commander, the island commander, all the divisions up at the top of the mountain. There was a very good reason. There was a 100-foot tidal wave coming. Typhoon. Well, naturally, being in the Seabees and we're in construction, we have a lot of equipment. Not only bulldozers, graders, and so on. We have all our fuel tanks. Everything had to be moved. Jeeps, so on. 1.5 tons, 2.5 tons. All of these things had to be moved. All we go. Up one road. When the time was called, no one was allowed to go down, up or down that road without being shot. That was the commander's orders.
Right.
Well, this is where the little spook you paid off. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing there on guard duty. And you'll have to remember, Jim, we're talking about tankers that are loaded with 4,000 to 6,000 gallons of gasoline or aircraft fuel or whatever you want. Because we're building the runways for the B-29 bombers.
Right.
So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I see something moving. The orders were fire. You don't ask. Fire. I just yelled out, halt. He didn't halt, and I opened up on my carbine. Not one of these. The carbine was the short version of these, which we could carry in the jungle.
Right.
And a very good piece of equipment. Unless you fired 100 rounds in it, it just turned out of the way because it got so hot. But we woke up the camp, and finally when we went down to see what I hit, it was a wild boar.
Wow.
You know, we all laughed about it,
Yeah.
but the Japanese used to crawl on their all fours also. So when the base commander, some of the guys were kidding me about it, the base commander comes over, he says, fellas, thank him. He could have dropped a grenade if it was a Jap, and you wouldn't be here to laugh about it.
Right.
So remember, gentlemen, you always, you know, we laughed about it. But, you know, when you laugh and you're like this,
Right. Yeah.
well, it's not a laugh, you know what I mean? At the time, you have to go along with these things. But we also heard at the time when the 29s took off on Tinian, which is only 3 miles away from Saipan, you can actually see the bombers taking off. Also the ones that took off for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. that, whether we like it or not, it's not very good for us Catholic people because we don't believe in that type of killing, you know, any killing.
Right.
But in the long run, they said we would have saved at least 2 million men on the invasion of Japan.
Right.
That was one bomb that saved quite a few lives. And maybe today they'll wake up. That's what's going on right now in Iraq.
Right.
And start using something instead of killing all these young fellas. Let them come home. Use what you have. I don't believe in it, but I do believe in the fellas that are over there. They should be back here.
Right.
We all have problems. Warfare is not the end of the problem. It will never solve the problem. We have to teach people our way of life. Right or wrong, I think myself, Bob, and some of the other fellows that you'll be interviewing, they'll tell you the same thing. Anyone that loves war belongs in a, plain English, belongs in a nut house. Okay, because the man is out of his mind. No one loves war. You don't serve the purpose for war. You know, it's the old cliche. We fought Japan, and since that time, we made them the richest country in the world.
Right.
So what did you gain? You lost 2.5 million men to gain nothing. And that's the way it is today. You're killing all these people right now, whether it's their side or our side, and in 5 years from now, you'll have the same thing, someone else sitting here and say, what did we gain? Okay? So guys, you're coming up the ladder, you young fellas. Think before you act. I'm very serious about that. Because out of all the fellas who were in my outfit, we only had one married fella. And he was the first one that was killed. And believe me, I went to see a few of these people, their families. It's not easy. You don't bring up a child to a certain age, and then these things happen. It's not right. I feel very bad about these people that are getting killed right now. We were very fortunate. We had one young fellow that we swore in last night. He's back from Iraq. I have his paperwork here. He would have been here this afternoon. If you looked at him, you could put on the same uniform as he did because he looked exactly the same age. Very young boy. But if you saw the pictures and you listened to this fella, it's not good. Believe me, it's not good. War is never good. You don't prove anything. You say, I won. What did you win? What did you win in war? But did you stop? What did you stop? You could have stopped it talking. You don't use these until there's nothing else to be done. Okay? That's all I can tell you, gentlemen, unless you would want to hear something else. It's, you know, I might have skipped over quite a bit.
Let's see. Did you receive any medals?
I have a few. I have 5 of them. You know, victim medal, the Asiatic Pacific, you know, occupation, and so on. There's so many of them.
What were the dates of service? So you went in
I went in 44 and came home in 46.
How would you rate the training that you had?
Thank you.
The training that I had particularly, my outfit had, like I say, we trained with the Marines, was excellent training. If you paid attention, that's what it was for. Those gentlemen were there. Most of the trainees, rather the DI, the sergeants that we had, were overseas, Guadalcanal and so on. When they came back, they knew exactly what the warfare was, hand to hand and so on. They told you, don't do this. In other words, the Japanese were, I have to admit, gentlemen, the Japanese, when it came to warfare, were excellent. As small as they were, it didn't mean anything. They used to booby trap steps. They put a beautiful revolver on the floor. Machine pistol, Japanese machine pistol. Everybody wanted those. Well, naturally. There you are. Okay? But as soon as you put your hand on it, that's where you went. You went up to see our father. okay? Because that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they told you before, don't touch. Stay away from souvenirs. The worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll never see the rest of the world after you do.
Right.
You see, these are the things that the Marines were trying to teach us. And if you wanted to listen and stay alive, you listen. Otherwise, you know, once you're dead, I've never heard anyone coming back and say how nice it was. You know, but, fortunately, I'm still here, thank God. And I intend to stay here for a long time.
How was the equipment that you had?
I'm sorry.
The equipment?
The equipment, we had the best. There was nothing better. Compared to some of the things that they have today. I mean, like in Korea, they had the AK-47, they were jamming all the time and so on. Well, you know, when you make a rifle, one, you take your time. When you make a million in one, you're bound to make a mistake somewhere along the line. So these things have to be, you know, you have to look into them, that's all it is. I mean, there were a few pieces of equipment that would fall apart or something wouldn't do the job, so you rectify the mistakes that were made, which they did back in the States. But we, overseas, we had good equipment. I couldn't complain about anything I carried, and I carried it. Army 45 and a Stuck Thompson machine gun. I'm like D8 Caterpillar. So, if the Japs were going to come and shoot me, they had to do it from a long way away. And that's all I could say. Like I said, fortunately, we had a few shots thrown at us, but the Marines would watch over us. When we were out on the runway, you know, like Bob was saying, you get out there with your Caterpillar, you got a grade. You have to understand one thing. On the islands, topsoil is in the United States.
Right.
Out there, you have material out there that's harder than your concrete that you have in the States. When you start bulldozing these things, you got to be very careful. You got to watch what you're doing. That's why you can't look ahead with what you're doing when there's someone over here trying to take a pop shot at you. That's why we used to call them gyrenes, used to watch over us. And thank God they did, because we're still here. But that's it.
How was the food you received?
Food was decent. And I'll be very truthful with you. The Navy aboard ship, you always had good food. Aboard ship. Of course, on the islands, it's a different story, because not many ships hit the islands that brought you food. And some of the food that you did get laid in the hull of the ship for 4 or 5 months. Well, you know, and with the rest of these tapes that you'll be going through, you'll probably have some of the fellows tell you the same thing. When flour, which came in 100-pound sacks, lay in the hull of a ship for 4 or 5 months, you're bound to get some friends. And I don't mean mice, okay? And I don't mean cockroaches. You used to have boll weevils, very small. They ate your flour. Well, when the gentlemen in the galley started making your bread, they'd have to sift the flour. Somewhere along the line, some of these things fell through. So naturally, when you put it in the oven, don't worry about it because you had meat with your bread. Go ahead and eat it. What else are you going to do, fellas? There is no other bread. Don't bother, believe me. After a while, they always said, brother, you'll probably ban me out. You got to eat a ton of dirt before you die. I think I got about 3/4 of it right now. But, you know, there was a lot of good things and a lot of bad things, but one overrides the other, but you make it do, believe me.
How did you keep in contact with your loved ones back at home?
Well, the mail wasn't, you know, you had to be lucky to get a letter. So naturally, when you wrote yours, you find the sheets of paper if you had the paper. You had to be lucky to have paper. Or you can grab them from one of the other boys, and that was it. The only paper that we had was poker cards, that's it. We played a lot of poker on the side. What else can you do? You couldn't go to a dance. There were no bars, so, you know, that was all stateside. Overseas, forget it. What else can I have for you, Jim?
What was your most memorable experience?
The most memorable? You'll laugh when I tell you, but in the harbor area on Saipan, we had quite a few ships, destroyers, a couple of aircraft carriers and so on. And like I say, when you're on land, the food is good, okay? But it could be better. We went aboard a YOG, which is a yacht oil and gas. It's a tanker. We met a couple of fellas. Some of our guys went to school with these fellas in Brooklyn. My outfit was made up of Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Long Island, and Staten Island. All our neighborhood boys. So somewhere along the line, you're going to meet someone you know. And the chief petty officer on this YOG says, fellas, come on down and eat with us. Well, 7 of us did. And believe it or not, that was the first time in 2.5 years that I sat down to eat a steak. And the steak was a good 12 inches long. It was 10 years old. It was cut 1-inch thick, and it was solid meat. This was one big chunk of meat, let's say, that was cut on a bandsaw. And I'll tell you, it was the most delicious piece of meat I had. I've never had a better one since. Those are the little things that make everything else, you forget about it.
How do you feel about your overall military experience in relation to the rest of your life?
Well, you know, in the beginning, you want to go, you know, you got that gung-ho business, and then, of course, you go through boots and everything else. And you meet a lot of good guys. You'll meet a few deadbeats along the way. That you'll always do, even in regular life. But you learn where other guys are from, you know, later on, after the war's over and everything else, you get to see these people with their lives, you know, with their wives, rather, and the children, which I still do today. And it's, I don't know, you know, it's like I said before, you had your own family, but now, when you meet these fellas, these also become part of your family. And you never let loose of them. I still write to at least 8 to 10 fellas that were in the service with me. They don't live around here at all. They're scattered all over the United States. But I love it. And I'm sorry I can't see most of them, but what can I tell you? That's what I liked about the whole deal.
What happened? What did you do when you arrived home in terms of occupation?
Well, at that time in Westbury, they didn't have the transportation you have today. Today, you have taxis all over the place, and buses, and trains, and so on. Here in this town, at 10 o'clock, there were no longer any trains. The same way with the bus. We used to have buses coming from Westbury and so on. 10 o'clock was the last bus. So you had to make sure that you got home during the day. Because if you didn't, it was a long walk. I was discharged at Lido Beach. Most of you fellows know what Lido Beach is today. No one knew I was coming home, and I kept it that way. Right. I wanted to surprise them. But the surprise was that I had a full red beard, and I had lost 30 pounds.
Right.
So here I come off the bus in Westbury. I have a Japanese rifle, which I still have, a bayonet, my sea bag, and a samurai sword. And I met at the bus, at that time, my Reverend Father, who had just been walking up the street. And he said, son, he said, you're just coming home? I said, yes, Father. Well, he said, I'll take a walk with you. He said, let me carry your sea bag. I said, Father, I carried it 9,000 miles already. He said, well, he said, I'm going to carry it the other 5 blocks for you. He carried my rifle for him. Became one of the best friends I ever had. And, you know, those are the things that stick in your mind, you know, these little things that, you know, but it's great, believe me. And since then, well, you know, getting back into Westbury, you know, you get involved with I went to work at Mitchell Field, the Air Force. From Mitchell Field, I went to the county of Nassau. When Mitchell Field closed, it was no longer an air base. It closed in 1960 and fully closed in 61. I went to the county of Nassau. And I saw all kinds of aircraft there, I worked on a lot of them, but I was mostly into construction. So, and also in the county, I went into construction.
Have you attended any reunions since?
No, my outfit disbanded in 1946, 47. As a matter of fact, I am in touch now with the gentleman from the 35th Seabee outfit, see if I can get some paperwork out to find out if there's still some of the fellows still alive that were in my outfit. I know quite a few are no longer with us, but I'd like to have a reunion, believe me. After 60 years, I think we need one.
Are you a part of any other veterans organizations besides?
I'm also with the American Legion here in Westbury, Post 101.
Okay.
And
have you seen any World War II movies or read any World War II books?
well, we have quite a few here, but any time you gentlemen may want to read them.
Right.
These are the complete facts. There's no fiction in these books. That's the real McCoy. Like places where Bob was with his interview. Those are the facts. Every piece of machinery, every gun, anything that was ever made by the Germans, the Russians, the Americans, everything's in those books. If you ever need them, be glad to call me. I'd be glad to loan them to you anytime. Because they're hard to come by, believe me.
So how big of an influence do you think your military
I'm
experience?
sorry. I didn't-
How big of an influence do you think your military experience had on your life as a whole? Like, do you think it's made a big impact on your life?
I'll be very true to you. I don't know what would have happened if, come out of high school and start your life. But I think I myself going into the service, meeting other people, I woke up a little sooner. I became a much better man than I think it would have been if you just walked the street, getting out of high school and do what you have to do. Russ? Jerry? Yeah. He was in the field, so. But I think you become a better person when you meet other people throughout the world and so on. It's a lot better.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.